What if I told you that 2026 is already decided, not by luck, not by the economy, not by who's in power, but by the choices you're about to make starting today? Most people drift into a new year hoping something changes. Winners decide something changes. This isn't about setting resolutions you'll forget by February. This is about setting standards that reshape your identity, your habits, and your future. 5 goals. Not complicated, not easy, but powerful. If you commit to them, 2026 won't just be another year on the calendar. It will be the year you look back on and say, that's when everything changed. Think about this for a moment. If I took everything away from you, your job, your connections, your comfort, even your confidence, but I left you with unpowerful skill, how fast could you rebuild your life? Faster than you think, because skills are leverage. Skills are freedom. Skills are something no economy, no boss, no crisis can ever take from you. Most people step into a new year saying, I want more money, I want more success, I want more freedom, but they never ask the deeper question, what must I become valuable at? Because income doesn't follow effort, it follows value, and value is created by skill. Right now, the world doesn't reward hard work the way it used to. It rewards rare and valuable ability. You can work harder than anyone you know and still feel stuck if you haven't developed something the marketplace actually needs. But the moment you master one high-value skill, everything shifts. Your confidence changes, your options expand, your future stops feeling fragile. Here's the trap most people fall into. They try to learn everything. A little of this, a little of that. They start, then stop. They watch, but never practice. They consume information like entertainment, not like training. And then they wonder why nothing changes. Mastery doesn't come from curiosity. It comes from commitment. In 2026, you don't need 10 new skills. You need one skill that multiplies everything else you do. Communication, persuasion, sales, leadership, problem solving, digital creation. Something that allows you to create impact, influence, or income at a higher level. One skill that, once learned, keeps paying you back again and again. And let me be clear, this isn't about talent. Talent is overrated. Talent is something people hide behind when they don't want to do the work. Skill is built, skill is trained, skill is earned through repetition when nobody's clapping for you. Skill is developed when you practice while others are distracted. Most people say, I don't have time. No, you don't have priorities. Because if you understood that mastering one skill could change the next 10 years of your life, you'd find 30 minutes a day, you'd find an hour, you'd stop scrolling and start building, you'd stop waiting for motivation and start acting from decision. Here's what mastery really looks like. It's boring at first, it's uncomfortable, you're bad before you're good, your ego takes a hit, you fail in public, and that's exactly why most people quit. They don't quit because it doesn't work, they quit because it threatens who they think they are. But growth always challenges identity before it rewards results. You don't need confidence to start. Confidence is a byproduct of competence. You start clumsy, you start unsure, you start messy, but every rep rewires your nervous system. Every attempt sends a signal to your brain, I'm becoming someone new. And one day, without even noticing, you cross a line. What used to scare you becomes normal. What used to feel impossible becomes routine. And here's the beautiful part. When you master one skill, it spills into everything else. Your posture changes, your voice changes, the way you walk into a room changes. You stop asking for permission, you stop settling because you know something valuable lives inside you now. But mastery requires a decision, not interest, not hope. A decision that says, this year I go deep, not wide. This year I stop dabbling. This year I become dangerous in one area. Dangerous doesn't mean aggressive. It means capable, reliable, unignorable. Let me challenge you. Stop asking, what's the easiest skill? Ask, what skill will make me undeniable? The one that once developed gives you leverage in any room, any industry, any conversation. The one that turns opportunities toward you instead of forcing you to chase them. And don't wait until you feel ready. Ready is a lie we tell ourselves to stay comfortable. You build readiness through action. You earn clarity by doing. You don't prepare forever. You prepare by stepping into the fire and adjusting as you go. In 2026, when others complain about the economy, you'll be sharpening your edge. When others blame the system, you'll be increasing your value. When others wait to be chosen, you'll be too skilled to ignore. Because when you master one high-value skill, you stop being dependent on luck and you start creating your own future. Let me tell you something most people don't want to hear, but every successful person eventually learns the hard way. Your life is not shaped by your intentions. It's shaped by what you do consistently, especially on the days you don't feel like doing anything at all. That's where discipline lives. Not in the highlight moments, not in the big speeches, but in the quiet choices no one applauds. Most people wait for motivation. They wait to feel inspired, energized, confident, ready. But motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. Discipline is structural. It stays. And in 2026, if you want real change, lasting change, you don't build a life on emotions. You build it on standards. Standards are what you do no matter what. Standards are who you are when no one is watching. Standards are the line you refuse to cross, even when it would be easier to quit. And here's the truth. Successful people don't have more willpower than you. They have higher standards for themselves. Think about how many times you've made promises to yourself. You said you'd start Monday. You said this year would be different. You said you'd wake up earlier, eat better, focus more, follow through. And then life happened. You got tired. You got distracted. You negotiated with yourself, not because you're weak, but because you never installed discipline as a system. Discipline isn't about being hard on yourself. It's about being honest with yourself. It's about deciding in advance what you will do when your emotions try to take control, because your emotions are designed for comfort, not for growth. They want the familiar. They want the easy. Discipline trains you to move forward anyway. And let me make this clear. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. Every time you do what you said you would do, you send a message to your nervous system, I can trust myself. And that trust compounds. Confidence doesn't come from hype. It comes from keeping your word to yourself. Most people think discipline means doing everything perfectly. That's not discipline. That's perfectionism. And perfectionism kills momentum. Real discipline is showing up even when you're tired. It's doing it messy. It's doing it at 70% instead of 0. It's refusing to let a bad moment turn into a bad day. In 2026, discipline is going to matter more than ever because distractions are everywhere. Your phone is designed to steal your focus. Your environment is built to keep you reactive. If you don't consciously train discipline, something else will train your attention for you, and it won't be in your favor. Discipline starts small. That's where people misunderstand it. They try to overhaul their entire life overnight. That never works. Discipline is built through tiny, non-negotiable actions. Wake up when you said you would. Finish what you start. Follow through on the one thing you promised today. Small wins wire big identity shifts. And once discipline is installed, something powerful happens. You stop relying on Mo. You stop waiting for the perfect conditions. You move from emotional living to intentional living. You don't ask, do I feel like it? You ask, what's required right now? And that question alone will separate you from 90% of the world. Here's another truth. Most people avoid discipline creates freedom. People think discipline is restrictive, but lack of discipline is what traps you. When you can't control your time, your habits, your reactions, you're not free. You're at the mercy of your impulses. Discipline gives you command over yourself, and self-command is the highest form of power. You don't need discipline in everything. You need discipline in the things that move the needle: your health, your focus, your skill development, your daily execution. If you lock in discipline there, everything else becomes easier. Momentum replaces resistance. And understand this, discipline is a muscle. It grows when you use it. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You want to quit. You want to justify. But every time you push through, that muscle strengthens. What once felt impossible becomes automatic. What once required effort becomes part of who you are. The future you doesn't need more chances. The future you needs stronger habits, needs clearer boundaries, needs a version of you who no longer negotiates with weakness. Not harsh, not cruel, just firm, calm, decided. Because when discipline becomes your identity, excuses disappear and results become inevitable. Let's go deeper now, because this is where everything truly changes. You can learn new skills. You can build discipline. You can work harder than ever before. But if you don't upgrade who you believe you are, you'll eventually sabotage everything you build, not consciously, automatically, because every human being has an identity, and that identity is always trying to stay consistent. Most people think change is about behavior. It's not. Behavior is the surface. Identity is the root. And you don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall back to the level of who you believe you are when pressure hits. That's why people lose weight and gain it back. That's why they make money and lose it. That's why they start strong and fade out. Their actions change, but their self-image didn't. Your identity is the story you tell yourself about who you are, what you deserve, and what's possible for you. And here's the part most people miss. That story was usually written by experiences you didn't choose. Childhood moments, past failures, things someone said when you were young, a label that stuck. And over time, you stop questioning it. You might say, I'm just not disciplined, or I'm not confident, or I'm not the kind of person who succeeds. And every time you say that, your brain says, okay, let's prove it. Your nervous system will always move you toward what feels familiar, even if familiar is painful. So if you want 2026 to be different, you don't start by asking, what should I do? You ask a far more powerful question, who must I become? Because when identity changes, behavior follows naturally. No force required, no constant willpower battle. Think about this. People who see themselves as healthy don't struggle to exercise. People who see themselves as leaders don't struggle to speak up. People who see themselves as disciplined don't argue with alarms in the morning. They act in alignment because it's who they are, not something they're trying to do. Identity change doesn't happen through affirmations alone. It happens through evidence, small, consistent actions that give your brain proof of a new self. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you cast a vote for a new identity. Every time you follow through, you reinforce a new standard. And eventually, had identity become solid. But here's the challenge. Identity upgrades require letting go of the old version of you. And that can feel like loss. You might outgrow certain relationships. You might stop fitting in. People may question you, tease you, even resist your change. Not because you're wrong, but because your growth challenges their comfort. And this is where most people retreat. They don't want to be misunderstood. They don't want to stand alone. So they shrink back into an identity that feels safe, even if it keeps them stuck. But comfort is a terrible long-term strategy. It feels good now and costs you later. If you want to evolve, you must be willing to disappoint your past to honor your future. That doesn't mean arrogance. It means alignment. It means deciding that the opinions formed from an older version of you no longer get to dictate what you become next. Your environment will test your new identity. Old triggers will show up. Stress will challenge you. Fatigue will whisper old habits. And in those moments, you don't argue, you decide. You say, that's not who I am anymore. And you act accordingly, even if it feels awkward at first. Here's a powerful truth. Identity is not fixed. It's trained, just like a muscle. The more you rehearse a new identity through action, the stronger it becomes. And eventually, the old identity loses its grip, not because you fought it, but because you stopped feeding it. In 2026, don't just set goals, set identity standards. Decide the kind of person who handles pressure with calm, the kind of person who follows through, the kind of person who doesn't quit when it gets uncomfortable. Let your goals be an expression of who you are becoming, not a wish list of things you hope might happen, because once your identity is upgraded, discipline becomes easier, skills compound faster, fear loses its power, and your future stops being a struggle and starts being a reflection of who you decided to become. Now let's talk about the thing that stops more dreams than failure ever will: fear. Not the fear you talk about, but the fear you feel in your body, the tight chest, the racing mind, the moment right before you speak up, step forward, take the risk. Most people interpret that feeling as a stop sign, but it's not. It's a signal. And in 2026, if you learn to read that signal differently, it will change everything. Fear doesn't show up when you're playing small. It shows up when you're about to grow. Think about it. Your heart doesn't pound when you're doing what's familiar. It pounds when you're stepping into something new. So if fear is present, that means opportunity is near. The problem is most people run from the very emotion that's pointing them toward their next level. Your brain is wired for survival, not success. It wants certainty. It wants comfort. It wants predictability. So the moment you step outside what it recognizes, it triggers fear to pull you back into the familiar. Not because you're in danger, but because you're changing. Fear isn't trying to hurt you. It's trying to keep you the same. But here's the truth. The life you want is on the other side of emotions you've been avoiding. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes because of action. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the decision to move with it. And every time you do, fear shrinks. Not instantly, but permanently. Most people wait for fear to disappear. That day never comes. Fear dissolves through exposure, not avoidance. The first time is hard. The second time is uncomfortable. The third time is manageable. And eventually, what once terrified you becomes your new normal. Fear becomes fuel when you stop asking, how do I get rid of this feeling? And start asking, what is this feeling preparing me for? Because fear means you care. Fear means there's something at stake. Fear means you're stepping into growth, not stagnation. Think about your biggest regrets. They're not the things you tried and failed at. They're the chances you didn't take, the conversations you avoided, the versions of yourself you never allowed to emerge because you were afraid of judgment, rejection, or failure. Fear didn't protect you. It limited you. In 2026, you don't eliminate fear. You train yourself to move through it. You condition your nervous system to see fear as a green light instead of a red one. You feel the sensation and you act anyway. And every time you do, you reclaim a piece of your power. Fear has patterns. It shows up as procrastination, overthinking, perfectionism, waiting for the right time. That's fear wearing a mask. And the way you break its grip is not by thinking more, but by acting sooner. Action disrupts fear. Motion creates clarity. And here's the shift. When you repeatedly act in the presence of fear, your identity changes. You stop seeing yourself as someone who avoids discomfort and start seeing yourself as someone who handles it. And once that identity forms, fear loses its authority over you. The strongest people aren't fearless. They're familiar with fear. They've walked with it enough times that it no longer controls their decisions. They don't eliminate fear. They leverage it. They use it as energy, as focus, as proof they're stretching beyond who they were yesterday. You don't need to take reckless risks. You need to take intentional ones. Speak when it's uncomfortable. Try when you're uncertain. Commit when you'd rather stay safe. Each courageous action builds momentum, and momentum dissolves doubt. And here's what happens when fear becomes fuel. You stop waiting for permission. You stop asking for validation. You move with urgency because you understand time is passing whether you act or not. Fear no longer delays you, it drives you. So when fear shows up this year, don't retreat. Don't numb it. Don't analyze it to death. Stand tall, breathe, and take the step anyway. Because the moment you move toward what scares you, fear stops being the enemy and becomes the force that pushes you into the life you were meant to live. Let's talk about something that's shaping your life far more than you realize, something so subtle that most people never consciously challenge it. Your environment, not just the place you live, but what you see, hear, consume, and allow around you every single day. Because here's the truth, you do not rise to the level of your goals, you sink to the level of your environment. And if you don't design it on purpose, it will design you by default. Most people think success is about inner strength alone. It's not. Even the strongest mindset gets worn down in the wrong environment. Willpower is a limited resource. You can burn it out, but environment works 24/7. It quietly shapes your behavior without asking for permission. That's why two people with the same goals can end up in completely different places, because their surroundings are programming them in different directions. Look at your daily inputs. What do you see first in the morning? What voices fill your head all day? What conversations surround you? What content are you consuming? These things aren't neutral. They're either expanding your vision or shrinking it. They're either reminding you of what's possible or constantly pulling you back into what's comfortable. You can't expect to live a focused, disciplined, growth-oriented life while constantly bathing your mind in distraction, negativity, and comparison. It doesn't work. The environment always wins. That's why people with massive potential stay stuck, not because they lack ability, but because they keep feeding their nervous system the wrong signals. Here's the shift you must make in 2026. Stop relying on self-control and start building systems that make the right choices easier and the wrong ones harder. That's what environment design is. It's not about becoming stronger, it's about becoming smarter. If you want to read more, put the book where your phone usually sits. If you want to train your body, lay your clothes out the night before. If you want to reduce distraction, remove the apps that steal your focus. If you want to think bigger, spend time with people who challenge your thinking. Small environmental shifts create massive behavioral change. Your physical environment matters. Clutter creates noise in the mind. A chaotic space reinforces a chaotic inner state. When you clean your space, you're not just organizing objects, you're signaling to your brain that order matters, that clarity carries over into how you think, how you act, and how you make decisions. Your social environment matters even more. The people you spend time with normalize what you believe is possible. If everyone around you complains, settles, and plays small, your nervous system interprets that as safety. Growth will feel threatening, but when you're around people who execute, stretch, and expect more from life, your standards rise naturally. This doesn't mean cutting people off with arrogance. It means choosing proximity with intention. You can love people and still limit exposure. You can care deeply and still protect your vision, because your future deserves an environment that supports it, not one that constantly pulls you backward. Your digital environment may be the most dangerous of all. Endless scrolling, constant comparison, emotional noise, it drains your energy without you realizing it. Attention is the new currency, and if you don't control yours, someone else will. What you repeatedly consume becomes what you think about. What you think about becomes how you feel. How you feel becomes how you act. In 2026, you must guard your inputs like your future depends on it, because it does. Be ruthless with what you allow into your mind, not harsh, just intentional. Choose content that expands you, conversations that elevate you, information that equips you, not exhausts you. And here's the powerful part. When your environment supports your growth, discipline becomes easier, fear becomes manageable, skills compound faster. You're not fighting yourself all day long. You're being guided forward by design. Environment doesn't replace personal responsibility. It reinforces it. It becomes the silent partner in your success. And once you experience what it feels like to live in an environment that aligns with your goals, you'll never go back to living by accident. Because when you design your environment for success, progress stops being a struggle and starts becoming inevitable. Now we bring it all together, because this is where everything becomes real. Skills don't change your life unless you practice them. Discipline doesn't matter unless you apply it daily. Identity doesn't shift unless you reinforce it through action. Fear doesn't transform unless you move through it. Environment doesn't work unless you engage with it. And the bridge between intention and transformation is daily progress. Most people think they need a massive breakthrough. They're waiting for a big moment, a dramatic shift, a perfect opportunity. But real change doesn't usually arrive like an explosion. It arrives like a quiet, repeated decision, the kind no one sees, the kind that doesn't feel heroic, the kind that compounds. Progress doesn't ask for perfection. It asks for consistency, one step forward every single day, because momentum is built through ion, not inspiration. And once momentum starts, it becomes easier to keep going than to stop. The biggest lie people believe is that small actions don't matter. They do. Small actions are everything. One workout doesn't transform your body. One focused work session doesn't build mastery. One brave conversation doesn't redefine your life. But stack them day after day, and suddenly you look back and realize you're no longer the same person. Here's what stops most people: the all or nothing mindset. If they can't do it perfectly, they don't do it at all. If they miss one day, they quit entirely. But progress isn't fragile. Quitting is. Missing a day doesn't erase growth. Missing the decision to return does. In 2026, the goal is simple: no 0 days. That doesn't mean every day is intense. It means every day moves you forward in some way. Some days the step is big. Some days it's small. Some days it's just showing up. But every day you prove to yourself that you're still in the game. Daily progress builds identity faster than motivation ever could. Every action becomes a vote for who you are becoming. And the more votes you cast, the stronger that identity becomes. Eventually, progress becomes automatic because it's no longer something you force. It's who you are. And here's the hidden power of daily progress. It builds trust with yourself. Most people don't lack confidence. They lack self-trust. They've broken promises to themselves too many times. But when you show up daily, even in small ways, that trust is restored. You start believing in yourself again, not because you feel good, but because you have proof. Progress also keeps fear from growing. Fear thrives in stillness. It gets louder when you hesitate, but when you move, any movement, fear loses oxygen. Action doesn't need to be perfect to be powerful. It just needs to happen. Daily progress keeps you engaged. Why? Your environment. It turns discipline into rhythm. It transforms skills into mastery. It aligns your identity with your actions. It creates momentum that carries you forward even on hard days. This is how extraordinary years are built, not through dramatic resolutions, but through quiet daily wins. When you look back at the end of 2026, you won't remember every day, but you'll see the result of them all combined. A stronger body, a sharper mind, a more confident presence, a life that moved forward instead of staying stuck. And the most important part, daily progress keeps hope alive, because every day you move, you remind yourself that change is happening, even when you can't see it yet. So don't ask yourself what you can do someday. Ask yourself what you can do today. Take the step, make the call, do the work, then do it again tomorrow. Because small steps taken daily don't just move you forward, they make you unstoppable.